Welcome back, my unapologetic listeners. We are back with another episode of the Unapologetic Anthropologist. And this week we are talking about how the hell humans survived. Really just recapping a little bit on everything we've kind of covered because we are switching gears. So, really wanted to take this perspective from the Ice Ages, which we just talked about, all the way into our modern perspective now. So, let's just jump in and get right started. So, going back to our early ancestors in the Paleocene here, we can see our basic anatomy here. We have no claws, thick furs, no giant saber tooths, no cheetah speed. There's nothing really anatomically making us superior here compared to some of the things that we know went extinct. The woolly mammoth, the saber-toothed tiger. We don't have a lot of these predatorial adaptations that we see. So if we're not the fastest and we're not the strongest and we're not the best armed, how did this weird hairless ape, which is us, end up running the world as we know it today? And a few factors here come into play, and some of this might be a repeat of some of our previous episodes. If you haven't had a chance to go back and watch those, they are relatively short, so take a peek through some of those. But in reference to what we're talking about today, we have human infants that are extremely more dependent on us. We have an enormous biological and social investment into our young. The time that we're caring for our young is much longer. Most of us are at home until we're 18, if not longer than that. So that really separates us from our mammalian predators that we see there. This vulnerability, if you want to consider that a vulnerability, creates a massive learning opportunity for us. Humans are not born knowing every single thing that we need to survive. Somebody has to teach you those things and basically condition you into the best survival. This is that cognitive learning window, that collective knowledge we talked about in a couple episodes ago, that really make up the difference of how knowledge is passed on, which is a huge key to our survival. Let's keep going. The biggest survivor skill that we had, and we kind of talked about that in the previous slide, is that collective knowledge. We had each other, we had grandparents, community members, all this collective socialization and learning that really allowed us to achieve new things and reach newer heights. We no longer had to use individual trial and error. We now have generations of people who have succeeded before us and get to willingly pass that information on. Not one human alone acquires all of this knowledge, but all of us together, which is completely different from our mammalia cousins. Let's keep moving along. And like I said before, we collect all of this knowledge. We are little knowledge hoarders. We preserve what the previous generations have done in order for us to continue moving forward. We don't have to start from scratch all over again at the beginning of our life. We get to use what everybody else has already trialed and errored for us to be able to continue reaching new heights and pushing humanity forward. Human knowledge can outlive any human who discovered it, hence why we have the field of anthropology, history, all of our written, spoken, all of our survival skills that have kind of lasted throughout the dawn of humanity. The ratchet effect, we never had to rediscover tools or fires, things from scratch. We have this basic foundation of knowledge. Knowledge accumulates, locked into place, and pushes our species forward. And then, of course, fire changed absolutely everything from the way that we cook to the way that we move to how we discuss things socially. Fire was not just a prehistoric heater, it actually transformed our society. Of course, cooking changed a ton of things as far as our biology is concerned and how we actually source our food. The biggest one to me is defense and expansion. We actually now can control the fire and move to different areas, which is something that we hadn't been able to do before. And then, of course, the social dimension of it, that fire now becomes the center of our social world, the collective bullpen, if you will. Of course, as we talked about in my last episode, the earth got very cold. So we then had to acquire new skills and adaptations to survive the climate itself. Instead of waiting for evolution to change our bodies, we discovered a behavior and technology that helped us adapt. whether that was shelters, clothing, maybe we have new technology to hunt and camouflage into different environments. And then, of course, all of the new hunting technologies, better spears, better fishing, better arrows, things that help us kind of acquire all of the sources and food that we're going to need. From there, we have our communication network. Language allows us to discuss and share things that are not immediately present, maybe some past survival skills, stories, ecological knowledge, warnings, or even just local culture and history. Long before there was Google or ChatGPT, we had each other. That's what we relied on for our information, thus making us even more social than we already were, fueling this fuel of collective knowledge. Now, I've talked a lot about this in my podcast and on my platform, but as you know, we are not alone. There was multiple species of humans on the earth. Homo sapiens coexisted with other highly intelligent human populations like the Desovians and the Neanderthals. They possessed sophisticated technologies and cultures, and then, of course, gave us our genetic legacy that we did not just completely appear. There are many DNA strands in all of us alive coming from these three common ancestors here, the Homo sapiens, obviously us, the Neanderthals, and the Desovians. We see the mix that is now living today. And humans, not only did we survive and adapt to the environments, but we thrived as well, creating new ways to live, new landmarks. Our ancestors expanded into new areas, deserts, mountains, rainforests, the Arctic. There was no natural signal or natural draw of human life to these areas. We then had to build our lifestyle, our diet, our societal structures, all in these new expansive territories. So, our real superpower, aside from being so social that we can pass on our collective knowledge, is our radical adaptability. We can change, set new courses, and make those changes within the current generation that we're in and pass those along to those who are coming. And then we made things super complicated and super fun. We didn't just stop with simple survival tools or needs. We created rituals, beauty standards, fashion, monsters, myth. We had all the things that we needed. Now we have the things that we want, is where culture becomes a part of the world that we actually live inside. We're now leaving our mark. Anthropology stops to ask, how do we survive, and start asking, why did we do all of these things? Why was this so important to our ancestors before us? Alrighty, I know this was a super short, probably our shortest episode ever, but I really wanted to kind of recap everything as we transition into our next topics. Um, we've looked at culture, we've decided, we know a little bit about how we got to where we are. Now we're kind of exploring more of the why. So our next episode coming up is going to really dive into the beauty standards and how we went from being cave people to now we're in this highly social media socialized, beautiful world and what that actually means. So, in the meantime, stay curious, stay unapologetic, and I will see you on the next episode.